You mentioned a couple of things here that I would like to pick up on: the particle system and hydrodynamic limits. I will go there with this conversation. So I believe this was what interested you when I came to Courant.
Yeah, in the early 80s, I was at a conference in Lumini. George Papanikolaou was there, and that was an interesting conference because we had a barbecue one evening with excellent seafood from the Mediterranean, and the next day we were all sick. All except Barry Simon.
Oh, well, I'm not surprised.
Anyway, maybe not that day, the day before or the day after. We went down to the seashore and down a hike after lunch, and George explained to me this problem of basically particles interacting through binary interaction and subject to some noise in terms of diffusion. And if you put large number of such particles in some domain and you rescaled it, somehow in the end you should have a flow for the density in the limit, because the only conserved quantity here is the particle number. So the limit, think of it as a conservation law, there should be some sort of a nonlinear, because of the interaction, nonlinear heat equation is what you should get for the density. And one can guess what the diffusion coefficient should be from non-equilibrium statistical mechanics. And the question is, how do you prove it? He had a graduate student, Guo, from China at that time, and they did succeed in proving fluctuation result. Fluctuation means that you are linearizing around a global equilibrium, and so it's considerably simpler than proving convergence in non-equilibrium. So when I heard the problem, I thought, it shouldn't be that difficult, because you just look at it like any other limit theorem. But I found I couldn't. It was hard. It was just not possible to do it at that time. So that stayed unsolved. But the problem was always, I was always thinking about the problem. And as with most problems, you think about it, you make progress. Most of it is in place, except one lemma you can't prove. And if you could only prove that one lemma, the whole thing works.
Right.
But anyway, that was the way with this too. But then I think a couple of years later, we had a visitor from Budapest, Josef Fritz, who gave a talk on a different model, field theoretic model, not a particle model, on similar hydrodynamic scaling problems. And then I realized that the lemma I couldn't prove, in his case, I could prove.
For his model.
For his model, I could prove. And in fact, we could prove a more general version of his result under much less restrictive conditions. And that's what I did with George and his student. That's what got me interested in hydrodynamic scaling problems.
Right. But that was also a big activity for you and afterwards with...
this I think, we did in 85 or something like that. And then for the next few years I had, excellent students. Fredon, Jeremy Costal, then Pablo Calderon. So a lot of students who were interested in this.
And postdocs as well you had.
And then we had many postdocs, Claude Kipnis from Paris, and then Stefano Ola, Claudio Landim, and then H.T. Howe joined the group. So we had a whole group of people continuing this activity, and so the techniques that we developed at that time were powerful techniques which could handle many problems that was remained unsolved at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that work was always astonishing to me. I kept up with that work mainly from the students and the postdocs who were there at that time, and I'm always at awe what you guys were doing as a group. So I'm very fond of it. Again, so let me ask your perspective as a person who was doing the work. Was something, again, that really a result that you like, as you pointed out in the large deviation problem?
One particular result, which is a key to many of the other results that I really liked, was, the model that I worked with George and his student is a model where, the underlying diffusion was a constant.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, what happens if I replace that constant by a function? Not a constant,
mm-hmm.
but nice elliptic smooth function.
Right.
Then the level of difficulty of the problem increases by an order of magnitude.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I never really could understand why. At some point you do integration by parts or summation by parts,
Right.
and that eats up 1 power of n.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If it's variable coefficients, you can't do it.
Right.
So you don't know what to do with that big n staring at your face.
Mm-hmm.
But then I found some way of doing it, using some large deviation to solve that problem. What it really involves is doing some kind of a cohomology type thing in infinite dimensions. There are certain functions which are certain types of gradients,
Mm-hmm.
and then there are certain other class of functions, and you want to show that the codimension is exactly what it should be. And if you take a representative with the orthogonal complement, that gives you the way of computing the diffusion coefficient. So it's a complicated piece of work. But somehow I arrived at it, and that's what Jeremy used to prove his results on particle systems and so on. But I still didn't understand why it had to be like that. Because that was mainly because my knowledge of statistical mechanics was very weak. Then I was at a conference and I told someone what I could do, and they explained to me that there are gradient and non-gradient models, and the so-called Green-Kubo diffusion is easy to compute in gradient models. But in non-gradient models, it's really impossible to compute, especially in non-equilibrium non-gradient models. Nobody has really computed it, and it's thought to be very difficult. And what I had done was really a method for approaching that problem.
I see.
So once I found out that's what it was, then we could do many other.
Right, and then you appreciate the difficulty as well.